Hello everyone, welcome to my class. Myself Janisha from St. Joseph Composite P College, Vijaypur. In the last episode, we have discussed about the liberalization. In that, some of the areas we discussed. So today, we'll continue those areas here in this episode. Tax reform. So then what the reforms have been takes place in the tax system? Tax reforms are concerned with the reforms in the government's taxation and public expenditure policies, and which are collectively known as fiscal policy. That means tax reforms can be takes place, that is in the fiscal policy. Reforms takes place in the fiscal policy, that means government's taxation as well as public expenditure. And as you know that there are two types of taxes. One is direct tax, another one is indirect tax. Then let me see what are the reforms have been takes place in this two types of a tax system. In the direct taxes, which consist of taxes on incomes of individual as well as profits of business enterprises. That you know that means the impact or the burden of what the tax which is directly paid by that single person or same person, that is what direct tax. So that is income of what his firm or wealth tax, profits. So these are all belongs to a same person, then it is what direct tax. Since 1991, there has been a continuous reduction in the taxes on individual incomes, and it was felt that high rates of income tax were an important reason for the tax evasion. That means what? Since 1991 up to that, there is a continuous reduction in the taxes on individual income. Why? Because it was felt that during those time there is a high rate of income tax. So that this is the reason for what? Tax evasion. It is now widely accepted that moderated rates of income tax which encourage savings and voluntary disclosure of income. And also this is widely everyone accepted that if it is moderate tax system or moderate income tax rate system, so this will be helps to encourage the savings and also voluntary disclosure of income. The rate of corporation tax, which was very high earlier, and it has been gradually reduced. And also this law came into effect from July 2017, and this is expected to generate additional revenue for the government, and which reduce the tax evasion and create one nation, one tax and one market. So this is one of the major reforms have been takes place in the indirect tax system. Another component of reform in this area is simplification. In order to encourage better compliance on the part of taxpayers, why this simplification was introduced? Because to encourage the better compliance on the part of the taxpayers, and many procedures have been simplified and the rates also substantially lowered. So this is also one of the reforms, simplification. Why? Because to encourage the taxpayers to pay the tax on time, and also procedures, simplify the procedures which helps them to make what? On time paying the taxes. So now let us discuss about foreign exchange reforms. Then, what are the reforms have been takes place in the foreign exchange system? The first important reform in the external sector was made in the foreign exchange market. As you know that internal sector and external sector. Yes, in the external sector, that is one of the important reform was made for the foreign exchange market. In 1991, as an immediate measure to resolve the balance of payment crisis, the rupee was devalued against foreign currencies. So this is what in 1991. So one of the immediate measure was takes place. Why this immediate measure was takes? Because to resolve the BOP, balance of payment crisis, and also the rupee was devalued against the foreign currencies. And this led to an increase in the inflow of foreign exchange, and it also set the tone to free the determination of rupee value in the foreign exchange market from government control. Now, more often than not, markets determine the exchange rates based on the demand and supply of a foreign exchange. That means the main measure or reforms have been takes place in the foreign exchange market because to what? Maintaining the balance of payment crisis and also devaluation of rupees. Next reform, trade and investment policy. Trade and investment policy reforms. Liberalization of trade and investment regime was initiated because to increase international competitiveness of industrial production and also foreign investment and technology into the economy. That means the liberalization of trade and investment regime or control that was initiated. Why it is initiated? Because to increase the international competition and also industrial production, foreign investment and technology. So for that reason, liberalization of a trade and investment was initiated. And the main aim of this trade and investment policy reform, that is to promote the efficiency of local industries and adoption of modern technologies. So this is what the main aim of a trade and investment policy reform. That means encourage the local industries and adopting the modern technologies. In order to protect domestic industries, India was following a regime of quantitative restrictions on imports. Then how India protect the domestic industries? That is by following the regime of quantitative restrictions on imports. And this was encouraged through tight control over imports and by keeping the tariffs very high. See, in order to control the import from another country, so here we put quantitative restrictions and as a result the tariff rate also very high, and these policies reduced efficiency and competitiveness, which led to slow growth of the manufacturing sector. So by putting this, by this high tariff rate, high control over imports, so this will adversely affect on whom? That is for manufacturing sector. So for that reason, some reforms will be required in the trade and investment sector also. And for this reason, the trade policy reforms, trade policy reforms will takes place, and the main aim of trade policy reforms, that is first one, dismantling of quantitative restrictions on imports and exports. That means settling the restrictions, quantitative restrictions on import and export. Second one, reduction of tariff rate, means tariff rate, reducing the tariff rate. And third one, removal of licensing procedures for import. That means what are the licensing system or restrictions will be there for imports, that is also removed. And also import licensing was abolished except in case of hazardous and environmentally sensitive industries. So import licensing was also abolished or removed, but except those cases that is in the hazardous and environmentally sensitive industries. So this is what the trade policy reforms have been takes place, that is in the during the reform period. Quantitative restrictions on imports of manufactured consumer goods and agricultural products were also fully removed from April 2001. And also export duties have been removed, and it increased the competition position of Indian goods in the international market. So in this way, reforms will be takes place under all these sectors. So this is what the liberalization. So finally we can say that liberalization was introduced because only to remove the restrictions on import and export, and also encourage the domestic trade, and also which encourage the establishment of various sectors in the economy. Okay students, in the next episode we'll discuss about privatization. So in this episode some exercise questions there. Please everyone solve those exercise questions and submit it on time. Thank you.